We are live, folks. All right. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another week of the weekly Jargon. I'm Abel Perez.
Jose Rodriguez.
Ravi Zacharias.
And today, fellas, we are here to fight, argue, and spill out jargon.
You're
No,
right.
I'm just kidding. We need to calibrate a little bit. We hadn't used these cards, and I think that's a good way to start, right? Before we get into the mini topics that are itching at us
I
here.
like that.
So, okay. Well, should we go with it? Okay.
Let's go.
So this says, if a friend made a racist joke, would you confront them or let it slide?
You know, I think because we're doing this public.
What does that mean?
No, I mean, I'll be very sincere with you. My inclination would be to say, hey, just that's not it. But there's times that you're passive and you don't know if that person, I mean, if it's a really good friend, someone that I can speak to and say, hey, that's not right, then I would immediately say that. I don't know the person's intentions when that comment was made, so not knowing the context of it, I think I would just say, in my own head, hey, it's kind of racist. That's kind of screwed up. I mean, would I speak up? I mean, you would have that Quinones come at you and say, hey, you didn't say nothing. Why? So I'm always thinking of that in the back of my head. You need to say something, right? I mean, that's just me being honest.
I think for the few times that I've been in that position, I know I do stay reserved, but I always say have in the back of my mind that someday somebody's going to check you on that.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to be that person, but somebody may.
You're gonna say it to the wrong person, right?
Or somebody's going to overhear it at the wrong time.
And,
they'll put you in your place.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think the context is important, right? Because sometimes when we hear about racist jokes, sometimes we forget that we can be racist against ourselves, oftentimes. And in the Latino community, it's not uncommon. George Lopez got famous, Carlos Mencia making fun of their own people, right? And oftentimes we can take that and we can relate and we can laugh with them and things like that, but there's always somebody else on the receiving end, and you never know how that could affect them. And so what might be funny to one person, certainly doesn't make it right for the people that do or could be taken offense to. Now, obviously, if it's in a matter of context where it's just like ill and evil, to that sense, where hey, you have no right or business saying that, right? If then I think I'm a little bit more apt to speaking up on it, especially if it's around my family, and especially if it's around my kids. You got to set that example. So yeah, that was a tricky one.
Yeah, that it was. So let's get at it. Let me ask you a question, Nathan.
Let me tell you a joke.
Let me ask you a question here. So I see you nice and spiffy. I mean, let us know what you're doing, and also, my understanding is you're running for the school board here locally.
Yeah.
So tell us a bit about that, because I'm supporting you, but I mean, I'm sure a lot of people that see you through our channel, we have millions and millions of followers.
Yeah.
So we'd like to make sure you let them know what's the drive behind this.
Well, I'll tell you this: the the attire, I guess, has nothing to do really with the campaign or my pursuit to acquire the Madera Unified Board of Trustees.
Really?
See, not at all. No, Madera's a relatively lax community, and so it would being a good representation of your constituents, it wouldn't be out of the ordinary to wear a polo and some slacks, right? So the attire is not for that setting. As I filed for a candidacy, I also accepted a new position with a large bank, and so I do business banking through them, and so it's actually that career that has a certain requirement for dress code, and that's why the dress is here, right? So anyway, so dual life things going on, both professional, my career as I start this new career there. This is actually like week 7 or 8, so things are going really well there. But again, simultaneously on the community side, I am going for school board. And so that has been interesting act to juggle both of them, but at the same time, My work schedule is very flexible. It gives me the ability to still create my own schedule and work, be able to, make time for the things that I enjoy doing as well, like community aspect or.
Well, good. So you're on the hot seat. We're going to ask a couple of questions. So
Okay.
again,
Yeah.
tell us the drive, the reason why you're wanting to seek this board of trustee position. What is it? What is it that you see, and what changes can we expect coming from Abel?
Yeah, I think the biggest driver, obviously, is it goes without saying is my own children. The skin that I have in the game, right? My wife and I were extremely involved in all things our kids do. I mean, we tell people these are our favorite people. They're our favorite athletes. We'd much rather spend time hanging out with them at their practices, at their games, or at their school events, performances, than be anywhere else, right? Take any other vacations. We're really cherishing and enjoying this time that we have with them. But through all of that experience and hanging out with them, we do see a lot of areas of opportunity, and a lot of demand for support, specifically in the school board, at the school board capacity, right? And so decisions are being made every single day, and we are recipients of those decisions. I mean, Jose, we talk about your work on the city council every single day, right? The decisions Jose is making affect all of us, on that city council, and that's why we get to jab at him, and I think that's why he's returning the favor now, right? But no, and it might sound cliche, but it's true, right? If not me, then who? And if not now, then when, right? And I think that's a extremely powerful statement, because when you look at things, especially in Madera, it's Madera is loaded with very passionate people. We all love Madera, right? But just like love is interesting, right? Because we love our kids, but it doesn't mean we're not going to whip them into shape when we need to, right? Because we want the best for our kids, right? And that love is how I feel the people have for Madera. We love Madera. We want the best for Madera. So we get upset when things aren't going correctly, right? Or things aren't on track, when we are not living to our full potential. And I feel wholeheartedly that I have the ability to influence our school board and our school district so that we can give our children the best possible opportunity, right? So how are we going to do that? I'm going to leverage leverage my ability to communicate, right? So I'm going to adopt communication standards amongst our board. Amongst our leadership within the school districts, and some might say, well, the school does a great job of communicating, right? They send me 5, 10 text messages a day. I get blown up. They over communicate, actually, right? Well, we can't forget that communication is a two-way street, right? So part of communicating isn't always just talking or giving information. It's also being good at receiving information. And I think that's where, as a school district, we fall short sometimes, right? We're not always listening, and sometimes that's where our answers are, right? Our answers are right in front of us. We just kind of got to listen and be better at that communication piece. So I want to ensure that we're communicating really well. In addition, I want to make sure that we're working with our partnering agencies, the city council, the county board of county supervisors, our sheriff's department, our fire departments, our police departments. I want to make sure that we're creating synergy amongst those individuals so that we're leveraging all of those tools and resources that each department has to cut costs and to establish a community feel, right? Anybody who's gone through our public school system, you might remember way back when in elementary school, the fire department used to come out and they used to give you flags, and and that was always a great experience, right? Why? Because firefighters, they all, as a kid, you just see them zoom down the street with loud sirens, right? And you think, oh, they're going to go save somebody. Well, when the police are doing that, you think somebody's in trouble, somebody's going to get arrested, right? And we start to create fear in our children of our law enforcement agencies. And so, creating synergy with those type of departments is going to help bring a better understanding to our students of how these different departments work, right? So yeah, police are here to help me, right? And they're not just here to fight crime and beat up bad guys, right? They're actually, here's everything else that they do, right? They're friends, they're partners. They help us feel safe just by being here, right? And they're also mentors. They can teach me how to establish a career in law enforcement, right? If we adopt that mentality with all of our services, all of our agencies, including our city councilman Jose Rodriguez right here, right? Jose, um, you know, uh, talk to these students, work with these seniors, teach them how local government works, teach them how decisions are being made, right? And even as I answered the question to many student age individuals or young teens, and they say, well, what does a trustee do, right? Even that conversation right there is kind of inspirational to these kids because they don't realize how things work, right? They don't realize how everything is being decided by somebody, and we call it a public forum, but nobody ever knows when those things are happening, right? And so all of that is what I take into consideration on have when coming into this, and the people that I'm serving, right?
So we can say passion. Passion is one of the main drivers. Obviously, you articulate it well. You're starting to sound like a politician, by the way, but you do know. But I do appreciate the passion because that is the number one reason that I support people that are really starting to see, well, where can I make an impact in school? And the number one driver is having that passion to make a change. So I appreciate that. What do you want to add there, Rohan?
I mean, my question would be as far as, and again, it's just what I see as an outsider to the schools is there going to be some kind of oversight or fiscal responsibility just in regards to like office space? Because it seems like over the last 5 years, the school district has expanded and take. I mean, Howard Road now is occupied by multiple buildings by the school district.
Right.
It seems like them as a whole has definitely grown. Is there going to be, again, is that something that you're, as a trustee, you have oversight to see? Are we being fiscally responsible?
Yeah, when we're talking about the fiscal responsibility of our school district, one thing that always kind of clouds the realities or the facts of what we're doing with our money is you hear oftentimes, oh, the schools have a lot of money, right? And that's usually what and nobody knows exactly how much. I guess you really have to dig in and check the go to the board meetings and look at the budgets, right? But we have a lot of money. We're able to do so much. We're able to do this. We're able to do that, and sometimes we're moving at such a rapid pace that that checks are being signed and we're just kind of moving forward, right? And so, yeah, slowing ourselves down a little bit and evaluating opportunities for cost savings. And with facilities, we're seeing all of these state of the art schools coming into place, and it seems like the school has been prioritizing our student facilities, but the facilities that our staffs are working in, I mean, that's equally important. Now, I don't know enough. I haven't had the opportunity to acquire the data to determine, why are we leasing? What are those leases? Are they leases? Are there opportunities to purchase buildings? What land do we have? What type of funding would be available to maybe create a more a centralized administration office? I'm sure a lot of those opportunities do exist, but I haven't. That is certainly something I look forward to digging into.
Well, I do want to point something out that makes this group dynamic, is that if you get elected, and I know that you will, then we'll have three folks that are in some political arena or appointed to serve as we're public servants in a way, right? We're doing our community involvement and getting involved with community, such as the school district, the planning department, city council. but we strive to try to make our city or our community better. And there's nothing more than having one of our own here, especially at the podcast, wanting to jump up and say, you know what, put me in, coach.
Yeah,
I want to make a difference here in our community. And obviously, with our student population, I think that's a great. So I commend you for that, there.
Yeah,
Abel.
thank you.
And I appreciate that. So I know that there's other topics that you guys are eager to talk about. Rohi, why don't you let us know why don't you let us know what's going on in the gun world and what's going on and just in general, what you're seeing in the markets? I mean, obviously, you're always you're our market guru.
I come from the retail side, so I can tell you the feeling of the people is still always that. Retail is down, sales are down, spending is down. And it's funny because I had a customer come in last week and we got into a little bit of a heated discussion because of his support for a certain female this election period. And, and he was like, well, everything is great. The economy is great. And that's why we need to vote for her. And I told him, you need to sit here for a couple of days. People are broke. People are losing their stuff, and that was one of the things this week that, one of the guys that comes in all the time as a processor, he's saying, man, repos, evictions, they're taking off. So when you talk about gun world, I think that just brings uncertainty again, and we'll see if it spikes. I mean, if that kind of helps move some of this the market, but I don't think things are good right now.
Yeah, and I think they're good for several sectors of maybe some industry or some economic world, but certainly not as good as you would think for the general population or the common folk, right? And I think we experienced that in our industry with the mortgage, and we didn't really see a lot of applications jumping off, right, and making a line. I think you had to really you had to fight for a lot of that, and these are people that are making moves because there's a need for them, right? An opportunity maybe, right? I think Abel always said, date the rate. What was it? Date what was it? That
marry
date,
the house.
Marry the house. There you go. Thank you. But I mean, this is a good opportunity for those people to say, you know what, this is a good opportunity because I'm not going to be here forever. In a couple of years, or when this seems to cool down and rates come down, then I can take advantage of buying this home. Yeah. And then hopefully putting myself in a better situation financially. But a funny thing you say, historically, there has been the economy seems to grow when you have a combination of these folks in Congress, right? When you have a split Congress and you have a Democratic president, for some reason you see a bit more growth. It's not a lot more than when you have a split Congress and a Republican, but it's slightly better. Now, when you say slightly better, what does that mean for the common folk, though, right? What does that mean for the common folk, or does it mean better for these corporations, right? It's better for somebody. But that's historically what I've searched is that this is the way it happens. Yeah. Now, when you have and I don't know, maybe in history if you've had several times where you had the full House and Senate and your president elect is a Republican and or Democrat, and what happens there, right? I didn't get in the weeds on that, but I did notice that this is happening. That's why you may hear some comments from folks that, hey, the economy is great, but truthfully, you see it with your common folk.
Well, people only have so much money to spend, and we've talked about that before. And again, and that's where you say the differences of how to solve the problem. One side says cut taxes, and one side gives handouts. I mean, that's kind of what we did, and I think the handouts is a lot of what got us into a worse situation. As a taxpayer, it'd be great to not pay as much taxes next year if that person gets in, because again, that's. As a business owner, that's where you say like the wheels turn is if I hold more money and then I put it back into the system and I'm buying new stuff. I mean, that's part of that system that gets moving instead of saying, here, everyone, you get another $1,000 check. All right, what did that really do for everybody? Bought them a new, iPhone because they didn't need one, but you gave them $1,000 free. I mean, that's kind of what we saw.
Yeah, I would say that in combination, the stimulus packages are the physical check, right? The $1,000 check. That was, oftentimes what we talk about, but we also got to figure out. And Jose always says the stored energy, right? Everybody had all this stored energy. Everybody had, and then they when the floodgates open, everybody couldn't wait to spend all that money. Correct. That's where the inflation happened, but. you had these $1,000 checks, but what you also had was you also had a lot more leniency from creditors, right? All these regulations on creditors where people didn't have to make their payments, and they didn't have to worry about services being shut off. You saw loan modifications on housing, right? So that was you figure a 2, 3, 4, 4 month, the fourth month, I think that's when they, foreclosure starts happening. Well, we're going to modify you on 4. And don't worry about your payment till month 6 even, right? So now you got 5 months of relief. If you had a $2,000 mortgage, that's $10,000, right? So you essentially are ahead now $10,000 plus your $1,000 check, and so that's where that stored energy is, right? Yeah. And so when I'm talking to folks, it's like, and I tell them about that. Well, the stimulus, how does that really help, or that money help propel this inflation to get out of control? I was like, well, how can only $1,000 do that? Well, it was a combination of those two things, in that kind of extreme example. Even if we were to cut it in half just to be a little bit more conservative, it's still $5,000 or $6,000. Sure. And when the average person in a community like Madera is only making $50,000, that's 10% right there. That 10% savings that they were able to establish, leveraging the systems that were in place at that time.
But there's also there's 2 parts to that. One is during when COVID happened, the money is going to funnel to the top basically. So you gave millions of people these $1,000 checks, you couldn't go anywhere. So what'd you spend it? You spent it on Amazon. You spent it on net. These major corporations. Well, once it goes to them, it doesn't really come back to your community. Yeah. Versus, when you say lower taxes, so now you're paying a little less, but I'm spending more in my community. Those tax dollars comes to me, and then I go here and I spend my money here. It goes further. It makes that wheel go further around. And the other problem is, they're pushing like this minimum wage hike. That was the other thing we've been seeing over the last 4 or 5 years. People don't realize is that, again, with this high tax rate, you're paying your high taxes. All of a sudden you break through, and now, you're making more money on paper, but you're paying more taxes at the end of the day. So you're not making more. Everything just gets more expensive. Right. And, now California is pushing an $18 minimum wage, by next year. And it's like, where do you think this is going to go? I mean, people who vote for that, it sounds great. You're getting more money in your check, but you realize it's just going to cost more. And
it trickles down to, every other industry, right?
Well, they're saying fast food didn't have any impact by this $20 minimum wage. You want to talk about lies? We hired somebody that was in that industry because their hours got cut. Yeah, they didn't maybe raise the food prices a whole lot, but they did. They started cutting back.
Saw, all of the, Pizza Hut being one of the major pizza chains, they got rid of all their drivers. Yeah. We're not going to deliver because. Yeah, if you're in Madera, you're delivering a pizza to Country Club, and you got to go the long way now, and that's almost an hour right there. So you sell a pizza for $20, but you just pay the delivery guy $20, and now you got your costs, and now you're geez.
No, and that is something to consider. Rohi, to your point regarding the whether you cut taxes or you stimulate. Either one of those doesn't really have an effect immediately on certain people, right? Like you said, I think all of that really has an effect on your bigger, wealthier corporations, sure. Right? Because when you cut taxes, it really doesn't benefit, the average Joe that makes anywhere between $50,000 to $150,000, say $250,000, because a lot of them don't have that kind of interest that they could deduct anyways, right? They don't have all these itemized deductions that they can take. When they're looking at the standard deduction that the IRS gives you for a married filing joint, you're looking at $26,000. So it's not like you have that much in deductions with interest. So a lot of that doesn't really apply to you. It really, or I'm not saying you per se, but you if you fit in that income bracket. But it does benefit those other folks that have, these $1 million mansions or these homes that are over $1 million. Yeah, because there's a lot of interest. But you can only write off so much, right? There's certain. So when you cut taxes,
my take-home check is bigger. When taxes are less.
So the reason behind the cutting of taxes is because then corporations will say, well, great, I'm not paying that much in taxes, therefore I'm going to invest more. Mm-hmm. But what really happens is that doesn't happen because you haven't seen it. You haven't seen it. You really haven't seen where this cutting of taxes has increased really growth in our economy in a way that, hey, everybody's coming up. Mm. So then the stimulus comes in. And when that stimulus comes in, wealthy companies get that money. And what do? they invest it back in their company. They buy the stock. So when they're really buying their stock, is that they're just inflating their company's net worth or value. But in a sense, it's not really helping you and or me. So it's a win-win for the companies, because that's typically who lobbies for these tax cuts. It's not you and I. You and I, or I'm not saying you as a business owner doesn't benefit you. It does. But at the end of the day, I don't have those millions of dollars to pay that lobbyist to go tell him, hey, work for Jose. Why don't you cut my taxes down? Yeah. Why don't you stop making me pay anywhere between 15 to 20% when I make this much money? Why don't you
because it's a breaking of what taxes are supposed to be. I mean, it goes back to why we formed the country we formed, is because we were tired of paying taxes and being overtaxed, and here we are getting bent over again.
Yeah. Again,
everything is a tax. There's a tax
and you know
here,
what?
a tax that.
Part of that revenue that they receive is to pay debt service. And the more money that we spend, and that we're physically spending, we're actually saying, hey, here's more money.
Yeah.
You're creating that other secret tax on what he talks about, which is inflation. Mm-hmm. We pay for it at the pump. We pay for it at the grocery store. It's another tax that it's invisible to you, but they know that this is a way the government can pay off its debts at a cheaper rate, because now they have more of this money that they can say, here, I just created more money. There you go. Go ahead and let's pay off that debt we owe you. But hey, on the backs of who? On the backs of you and I. And that's what sucks. Like you said, yeah, they're bending us over. And they're saying, here you go again. Mm-hmm. Because at the end of the day, all that revenue is to pay what? It's to pay debt service. Yeah. And it's a lot. Trillions of dollars now. It's scary.
That's Halloween. Scariness. Yeah.
So I know you guys had other questions. You were asking me earlier about this.
You want to break into that?
Yeah. Well, shoot away.
Well, just as we're, just kind of on that topic, I think 2 shows ago or last show we were talking about downtown, right? And downtown, and we all want that hallmark downtown, right? But to the point of wage increases and the things being difficult for your small business owners, it's who's willing to invest down there, right? And then when you have opportunity to pull away from brick and mortar and have online sales, why wouldn't you just sell your boutique clothes online? And you're seeing that more, right? People are using Instagram, TikTok, using other real people, little local models to promote their clothing lines, right? They're making a killing just selling and delivering from their garage, right? And so but you see that as you see that becoming. I think it's just only going to become more and more prevalent as you have more and more regulation on brick and mortar, facilities, right, including your taxes. It's hard to operate a business that way, and so I just.
My frustration with the downtown thing is it goes beyond that. See, living in an association, you have an association due. They have an association as well. Those dues go to the maintenance of basically the things that are not your own property, right? That's how it's written. So me as my homeowner, I still have to maintain my lawn. I still have to maintain my house, but the association is going to take care of my roads. They're going to take care of my park. They're going to cut my trees that are, part of the association, maintain the lights, all that. With this, you have buildings owned by a private entity. You have an association that collects fees to take care of that association, those businesses, but then the city has some kind of ownership to say we need to spend taxpayer dollars to fix up private entities in this area only. And that's where the concern over the years has definitely been, is if they want to beautify, you own the building. Beautify your building. You want to help from the city to say maybe help process the things faster. I think you guys were doing one point where they didn't have to pay the fees associated with the filing of it, whatever they needed, the contracts and stuff. That's great. But when you say we need to spend taxpayer money to fix somebody's building, like you guys did, you painted buildings, you put new flower pot, you put all these things that are part of what I would consider the association's responsibility. What are the association paying for? What are their monies going to? And if it's not enough, that's on them. They need to raise their dues, right? But that's what I'm saying. We've always had that argument, is to say, well, we have business here on Howard. Why Howard generates probably just as much money? Why aren't we beautifying Howard Road and calling that the new downtown? When we already know for years downtown has kind of been dead. Like I mean, that's, I think, typical of most cities right now. Is it's the old town, it's old buildings, it needs a lot of work, things that should be torn down and rebuilt, and that's kind of what happened. But I just that you know, I mean, that's always been our passion with downtown is, again, taxpayer, city involvement in what is a private entity with its own association.
Yeah, but I don't think you see those dollars going directly to those buildings. If anything, it's just the public roadways, right? You have your sidewalks, your crosswalks, your city shelters. The bus shelter stations.
But the city has
city lights.
it's heavy-handed on this idea that we need to improve it.
We
you don't come to Howard and say, hey, you know what, we need to improve Howard, or any other part of town. Like, are you coming to that and saying, you know, we're going to help whatever?
You've heard
Street,
of you've heard of downtown being rehabilitated for how many years? Has it been decades?
It's been a long time.
So obviously the city really hasn't had the money to do it, right? There's not like, hey, we have a pot
But if you
of
did, if you had
millions of
$5 million given to you, to the city,
priority.
why would the city invest it into a private entity?
Okay,
that's what I'm saying.
So that's a good question. So again, part of the funds that are coming through the downtown are not necessarily the cities. Those are all through Caltrans because we have a state route that runs through there.
Sure.
So whenever there is a plan for this, for Caltrans to help rehabilitate that major corridor there of State Highway 145, then there's mitigation. The city then will find, well, I mean, can you at least take care of the sidewalks? Can you broaden? Can you add a bike lane? Can you add these crosswalks? Can you add a median? So we're adding the input that if you're going to go down here and rehabilitate this, or you're reconnecting these communities again, then let's go ahead and make sure that we do it in a standard that meets with the council's vision or the city's vision of what a downtown should look like. Again, is there some investment? There is investment. But again, that investment, it complements that bigger project that's taking place. Now, if Howard Road was a state route, then I think it would be the same way. If it came down to where Caltrans says, you know what, this 4-lane deal is just not really attracting. Let's go ahead and make this a two-divided highway, 2-lane highway, and here's what we're going to invest in it. At that moment, then it would go to the city council. What do you think? You ultimately make that decision whether or not you want to make that investment. But if your business says, hey, that would suffer. I would suffer because you're taking more of my access or right-of-way, and I can't have any parking there. Then all those comments would be brought to you. But it seems like downtown, a lot of that association supported this idea. And with it, there was a plan that was a report that was done to see how would you like to see this downtown spruced up, right? And we utilize that to align our plan to make sure that we meet not only the citizens' plan, but also the people that are downtown. They're the ones that'll be affected by this narrowing a road diet that we're going to do.
But that's something recent. I mean, but before the road diet, for how, like you said,
I
how
wasn't-
many decades? I'm not saying it's a fall, but
yeah.
I'm just saying, as a city, it has been a constant, like, you know, we have to revitalize downtown. We have to paint. We have to fix. We have to help out. Why?
I agree with you. I think that if owners wanted to see this downtown, they should take an initiative in collecting more of these associations and helping themselves build up. The city's already providing, we may incentivize something for, hey, bring in a business out here. You know,
Sure.
A city owns some land out there. We're always trying to motivate. You saw the 48-unit apartment deal that we built out there for middle to mixed income, low to mixed income folks out there that provides them access to a lot of the services that are downtown. Downtown should be a mixed-use type of buildings that can potentially provide and house anywhere from apartments to businesses, the social service spectrum. People sometimes don't want to have any of that, but we're talking about the school maybe moving in down there.
Yeah.
I mean, that would generate some interest in wanting to have people come down there and say, you know what, I want to invest my dollars here. There's a nice little mom and pop shop right here that I can stop by. I can have my lunch here. I can do some business here. That's how they wanted to, or that's how they perceive downtown, right? And we're slowly starting to get there. And once this rehabilitation happens, we hope to see that, Rohi. I don't think it's going to happen overnight, but we hope to see that. And again, this is an investment that Caltrans is doing, and we're piggybacking with a little bit of investment on our own.
Well, as long as you remember, downtown is not simply, one street. It's an area, and I think that's the other thing is that everything in the focus seems to be that single road when you go a block away and the conditions are quite worse as far as buildings and roadways and the way things look. That's and those buildings are also a part of that association. Is that the city should be pushing, like you said, more on the association. You don't go, the city doesn't come into my home association and say, hey, we're going to help chop down a tree because you guys can't afford it, or we're going to help dig this hole because you guys can't do that. Every time we have an issue, they say that's your responsibility and you better have your own money to do it. So that's my concern is that as a private entity versus in the city, that there needs to be more separation. So
It's a good point. It's a good point.
Yeah, no, I like it.
anyways,
So what if we're talking about that, Yosemite and kind of the small veins out there? Does the city own any property out there, or what?
There's some lots that the city owns. Yes. I think you see that vacant lot there, right over the Union Pacific.
the one that burned down.
Yeah, and that one there is the city's. And in between that lot, there is a private building, and then the transit center that was there as well. So there's a couple of buildings out there, and I think, the city's always looking to see how we can utilize that space in a way that complements the vision.
How
of what
high?
they would
How
like to
high
see.
of a building are you allowed to have in there?
Well, I don't have the specifics. I think the planning
The
department
ordinance,
would be.
the
would-
ordinance,
Yeah, I don't
what's
know
the
the ordinance on that.
But I'm
No,
sure
there's
the
no-
zoning codes would say, hey, you can go
Well,
this
we got
far
the
up.
what is it? The new one house thing they built, I think 2 or 3 stories.
Yeah.
The new veterans homes and stuff.
So there's just a couple of setbacks that you'd have to do and follow.
It'd be a nice business, like if you're trying to bring the people, right, a nice business center right on that lot, and if the city does want to get involved, or does want to support or help stimulate, owning that piece of land, might be a good opportunity to say, hey, we'll afford this, we'll donate this land to the highest bidder with the best plan.
Yeah.
A developer who's going to come in here and put, 75 office spaces here,
Yeah.
and 3 or 4 stories, and we'll leave it up to you to figure out who you're going to lease it to, but we want this to be a business district, right?
Yeah.
We want 100 plus people who are 9 to 5 employees who are going to go to lunch at noontime and stimulate the local downtown, and then go to dinner afterwards, and go to happy hour afterwards, and stimulate this, right? And I think until you have that, it's a hard sale, right? We talked about who's going to want to park down there. Well, now you say, hey, by the way, we have this developer building this unit, and we have it being leased to these companies who have a medium income of this, or an average salary of this. Here's your demand, right? They're going to be right here next to it. And now, shoot, I bet you start seeing a lot of those buildings go up for sale, or, a lot of those people who've just been sitting on them, because there's going to be bidders now, and people who are going to come in and be willing to invest, right? But until you have that staple of people, right, that guarantee, then I don't think it's a hard sale to other businesses. So I think that might be a way that the city can leverage.
I think the city's always looking for those opportunities, but
Yeah.
just keep in mind that whenever you do something like that, or for the highest bidder, then you have to, the city has to just be mindful that, hey, this could be considered a gift of public funds, because it's got to benefit the community as a whole, right? So if it is coming, maybe a sale of it that makes sense, so that it's not considered a gift of public funds, but rather this private entity may use it as a mixed use, may have something of a multicultural art center that benefits the community, and then businesses up there, right? I mean, you see that downtown Merced. If you ever go down there, you'll see how they complement these certain buildings that certainly make a lot of sense. So I like to look at cities that are thriving.
I
And
think
if it's not broken, don't fix it. Follow the same pattern and see if we can generate some funds from that.
I would like to see us not get too ahead of ourselves, because when I hear about the art center, trust me, I would love to have a beautiful art center here where we have Broadway sliding through here and performing. That'd be great, right? But that's way too costly. And I think we have to build the demand first. And if you build, if you help trickle or stimulate the foot traffic, now you have, now you have other entities or private entities who it just makes business sense, right? And so then you don't have to worry about funding the building. People are going to want to park their building here and fund it themselves because they see the financial benefit, right? So I think it's how do we get people out of their cars on Yosemite? How do we get them out of their cars, right? Well, the easiest way is, put employers down there,
and
make them work there. You're stuck. You have no choice but to get out of your car. And now you have, I think that's where that's how you see, Fig Garden Village, and you see little business districts like that start to thrive. And now it's the quality retailers are coming because they have their clientele that's right there, and so they need to service them, right? And when you start seeing that now, all of the analytics of, well, what does the city make and what is everything else, that's all irrelevant, because no, we're going in here and we're targeting this building right here, or these companies that are providing our clients, right, our customers.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that, but I think every downtown from its inception was mainly the core of where all business took place, right? That's why you have that the rails there for the train. You have all these mills that took place at one time because this was where business was done. It was a business district. And I mean, if you look at the surrounding communities, it was really a walking distance. So I don't like the idea that, hey, we're going to rush all these vehicles to try to, it doesn't make sense. We don't have the capacity to be able to accommodate all these vehicles. So we have to consider that, how do we make this an inviting place for people to come downtown in a way that it's very easy to walk, a trail or something. If you look at these big, huge parks like Central Park, I'm not trying to say that that's where we're at today, town and country. People like to go there and walk there because it makes it very inviting. You have a courthouse park that's not too far from there. Over the years, if you go back 50 years, maybe it was utilized in a way that more and more people decided, the park was a beautiful area to be. Bring the family, enjoy a Sunday afternoon, not too far away from the church and what have you. And then you had downtown. Well, that's changed. Demographics change, but so will this. This will go by sometime, and it'll become maybe an attraction to someday, where downtown will become a core where people want to come in and say, you know what, this is a great place for me to buy, great to dine, to walk. When I walk down these centers or these downtowns in different cities and these very dense cities, it's beautiful. It makes me feel like, wow, man, this is actually really, really nice. I can walk through here and I feel very comfortable. I can buy some pastries. I can buy a coffee. And that's kind of the idea of what I see. But again, this is my vision. I would hope that more and more of these people that own these companies or developers would see the same vision. That you potentially have all these things that can connect and become a hub for whether it's art, whether it's commercial, whatever the case may be. But you have to keep in mind that to accommodate all these vehicles, unless you have parking garages, then it's very difficult. And the space has got to be there. You may have to tear down certain areas. Maybe those areas that you're saying that are very dilapidated on the back end or something. Maybe make those parking garages where people can actually come to see something big. You have a Chachansey Park out here in downtown Fresno. Shoot, man. I mean, that's pretty big out there, right?
I go to, I get what you're saying about the parking, the infrastructure, but again, it's you got to create those staples, and you allow some land, afford some land, make it very affordable, make it very easy for somebody to want to develop there. You create job opportunities, and that's how you steer these higher paying jobs to downtown, right? And you just accommodate them for now, right? You just accommodate them, and everybody else who wants to build a business now when they're investing in downtown, they're accommodating their parking spaces. They're making considerations that we have people that want to be there because there's opportunity to make money, but now we can leverage their desire to be there in order to help with additional infrastructure, right? And so that's what I mean about, sometimes we get too far ahead of ourselves where it's like, well, we're going to have all these problems. Well, yeah, we do have to plan for them, but we also have to not be scared to put it on people sometimes too, right? But what's the biggest need, right? It's like business, like real estate, right? What's the biggest need for a realtor, right? Leads. right? You need leads to have opportunities so that you can make a career, right? What do businesses need? They need leads, they need clients, they need heads walking around so that they can put a nice, beautiful sign and have a nice, inviting front. And the city doesn't have to put the planners. We'll put the planners because we know that planters are inviting, and you know what I mean. And so now I want to beautify my storefront because there's people here. And man, that guy's wearing a nice polo, and he looks like he's ready to buy a $7 coffee. I want to attract him, so I'm going to make my store look more inviting, and I'm gonna build it to cater to him. I think that's really what we're missing right now, because the park is great, but again, it's like, if I go to the park, am I going to go to Yum Yum Donuts and the great? Yeah, I do like Yum Yum Donuts, by the way. But then where else am I going to go? What other options are there? Where and so and then we can't say, well, we have a park, so you should put your coffee shop right there. It's like, well, I can't base my business on your Saturday and Sunday park traffic. It just doesn't work like that. What am I going to do Monday through Friday, right? How am I going to pay my bills? So we need that. I think we need that business district there.
I'll give you two parts to that. The difference here, though, so for instance, you take like Howard Plaza down the road. A property manager decides who comes in. They fit who they think is going to work with their business. If I come with some oddball business, even though you would seem like, oh yeah, well they'll let anybody in, they're not. Right. The same way how Fig Garden is. They want to cater to who their people are.
Right.
The association is no different. They should be catering. I'm sure they have their own input to say, if I want to put this kind of business in, we think it's going to work or not work for the rest of us here. So again, it goes back to when you say like the city needs to go out and find. No, it's not. They are an entity. They're their own thing. It's not like the businesses here, who are kind of like you got your own owners and there's no association. They are an entity. They should decide who goes in there. Now, when you say what is the city involvement, well, there are pieces of property that are like dirt right now. Go make it a pocket park. Go do some of these things to entice, like you said, people to kind of hang out. I know there's a park down the road. We used to have a movie theater. It was been many years you guys tore that down, but the entertainment, like you're saying, there has to be something that's going to be an ongoing entertainment, not the Friday night, Saturday night club, at TJ's or whatever, that little bit of draw. Because what you have is you have a mix of businesses that, for the most part, the banks close at 5. I think all the other retail is probably done by 6 or 7. So from like 7 p.m. to the next morning, there's no draw. There is nothing open. So even if you're that single business like TJ's, who's open till 12, 2 a.m., whatever they're going to do, there's no other draw except for them. So the association needs to be the one looking at that and saying, okay, maybe it's time when these guys, this lease comes up for this whatever shopping thing that really doesn't have a huge draw. Maybe it's time to get something fresh in there, not for the city to do that.
So what I mentioned earlier about having the core downtown, obviously that happened because it was private investment in bringing in a rail.
Sure.
Hundreds of years, maybe 100 years ago, when the Transcontinental Railroad came through, and there was all these other Union Pacific, Santa Fe, Southern Pacific. They all came through, and towns built around that because they knew that this is a way they can deliver products outside of their city. They can bring in goods and what have you. So if you look at downtown, that's pretty much what it stood for. And over the years, they've kind of the evolution of these buildings and what they've used them for have changed, right? From hey, these are your retail, commercial, all the from feed to whatever the case may be. It's all downtown. But here's the thing: there was an investment done because of that. You look at Fulton and you look at Chancey Park. Same thing. You had businesses that just didn't really want to push anything, but this wave of money came through with the high-speed rail. Mm-hmm. They flooded that downtown with a lot of money to be able to spruce it up. The city now could utilize some of those funds to be able to bring that closer to the Chancey Park and closer to the vision that they had downtown. Now, if you go down there, you'll see some of those developments that have been done, again, with money that was flushed through these maybe once in our lifetime type of investment. I don't know that we'll see that, but we have another investment coming through, and that's the Caltrans bringing in this deal. So for us, let's jump on that because it's these opportunities that we can spruce up or at least try to bring up some hype about, hey, we're going to try to make downtown better. Now, if the owners want to do and participate, that's on them. But look, a lot of that development, a lot of the infrastructure was put downtown Fresno through those millions of dollars that they received through the high-speed rail. We had an opportunity. Back then, in 2010, there was an alignment that was being presented to the city council also, and I think it was probably before that. But it was presented to say, hey, do you want to see this come downtown? Here's what you can mitigate for. Millions and millions of dollars to take care of the East Street corridor, to help downtown. We didn't take advantage of it.
Yeah.
Okay. Now it's going out through the Santa Fe line and a line through that, and the county, out of all people, sued, but then they actually mitigated and they got a lot of money for it. The city, on the other hand, I'm sorry, we missed out. Fresno, millions of dollars, right? So now the station is no longer coming through Madera. It's actually over on Avenue 12, which is a good thing. It's a regional deal. But I'm just giving you some examples of what investment's going to happen down there. Over $50 million of investment to bring that dual platform at some point, dual mode of transportation. You have your high-speed rail and you have your other Santa Fe lines that may cross there. Hey, this is a good stop for me to jump off. What can I develop out there? Oh, by the way, there's a school down the street, a higher learning institution. And then you have cities growing all over it. So it's smart planning. And sometimes, we have to look at that, is how we plan out our city and what future you want for this particular area. You have to know that there's an investment coming through, and you have to know when to jump on it. I think we did that. And then once you have that investment and infrastructure in place, it's easier for a developer to say, well, shit, I'm not going to have to pay for this, and that. My profitability is a lot better now that I don't have to include all these things that have already been included because of this development that went through. It makes it easy. It's a economic deal for any business. And I know that if you had to pay for installing utilities underground now, it would cost you an arm and a leg. Shit. I mean, you would say, it's not worth it.
Okay.
All right.
So that's all right. That's the weekly jargon. Any last minute? Do you want to answer one last question before we go through this little thing there? Are we good? All right.
Okay,
Let's
gotta get.
Well, gentlemen, good talk. Obviously, if you're listening out there,
with us.
You can hear the passion that everybody has, right? And I think government is never easy, right? There's always, you're never going to make everybody happy. There's always going to be a high volume of opinions, and so I give a lot of credit to those individuals like my colleagues here who have taken who take the heat, sitting on various, the different commissions, planning commission, and of course the city council, probably two of the most scrutinized groups or committees that are out there, because the decisions you guys make impact everybody, and so share your thoughts with us, and we want your input as well, because that's typically how things are shaped, right? And things are formed is by public input. That's all taken into consideration, and then it's kind of brought to the table and or brought to the boards, and the decisions are made. So be part of that conversation, get involved, and but it all starts here. Comment, share, like, subscribe, send us donuts, whatever it is.
And before we sign off, for any of you that are listening and live in Madera, tomorrow there will be an event at the Vineyard. We'll host Abel's kickoff campaign. So if you've been watching us and you like what you hear, especially from Abel, let's support him. Let's go ahead and come by, say hi, drop off a small amount there. Obviously, campaigns do cost money, but we want to put them in a position where we have people like Abel serving our community, especially on the school board, and looking after our student population. So if you're looking at this, come out tomorrow, October 10th. We're going to have a no-host bar.
We'll have some appetizers for you. We're going to try to keep it nice and short, maybe about an hour long, 5:30. That's when things start. And so come on out. Rohi will be out there signing autographs for all of our viewers.
And maybe